What's up, y'all? It's your boy JTMM, aka JustTenMoreMinutes, aka the Freakin 10, back with another video, another Sabaton history. This time, the Red Baron. Now, I saw when I did the Google search for it, there's two. There's a part one and a part two. So I will be covering both. At least this one, I'm starting out trying to get back to where I can release, you know, a Sabaton song, and then on that next day, release the history. So, you know, I may end up posting some double days where I post two Sabaton reactions history, just to kind of catch up to where I'm in that react. Obviously that's going to take some time, may never happen, but that is the goal. So with that being said, this is one that I'm interested in seeing for many reasons, just because the story of it. There was a trivia question on one of the other channels that I watch. They were doing a trivia game, and it came up about how many planes the Red Baron had shot down, and in the game it talked about over 4,000. And so, you know, that was just astonishing to me, and I don't remember if they covered it in the actual video itself, but we'll see if they cover it in the history. So with that being said, there's only one thing left to do. Let's switch it up. Let's check it out.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Joaquin from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History.
Now, we are standing in front of a bunker from the First World War, because we're going to be talking about one of the songs from your album, The Great War. And today we're going to be talking about the Red Baron. Now, everybody knows who the Red Baron is.
No.
Just
this
that
is
look.
Fort Douaumont, the symbol of Verdun, and for many, the physical symbol of World War I. But perhaps the most enduring symbol of the war is the Red Baron. People might not know the Kaiser, the battles, or anything about the war in general, but they still recognize the name the Red Baron. Even over 100 years after his death, he's still represented in books, movies, and songs. Manfred Albrecht Freiherr von Richthofen was born May 2nd, 1892 in Silesia to Prussian nobility. His father was an officer of the Imperial German Army, and Manfred enrolled into Wahlstatt Military School at age 11. He would rise to the rank of lieutenant in the 1st Uhlans, a prestigious cavalry regiment. However, when the war came, it became clear that cavalry would not play a major role on battlefields dominated by entrenched machine guns.
Yep.
To escape the monotony of guard duty in the trenches, von Richthofen looked to the skies, where the first reconnaissance planes flew, and he successfully applied for the air service in June 1915. He began his work as an observer in a two-seater on the Eastern Front, photographing Russian troops, and was then transferred to Belgium. Now, airplanes were still a new thing, and they evolved rapidly during the war. By late 1915, the days of unarmed reconnaissance planes were over, and the single-seater fighter appeared over the battlefields, as did the first German flying aces, an ace being someone with 5 confirmed aerial kills. By early 1916, men like Max Immelmann and Oswald Belke made names for themselves as the Knights in the Skies. The first...
So I want to stop it there, because I didn't know that. So to become an ace, you had to have at least 5 confirmed kills. Interesting. Huh. And that's interesting at age 11, right? So I'm curious, and y'all may know this, but at what age do you reach lieutenant, right? Because, you know, joining it at 11 and quickly rising kind of it assumes that there was some type of quick rise in the sense of, you know, after joining. So I'm curious how far along after joining did he actually become a lieutenant? Also, that single shot gunner, I do, let's see, so we are at the roughly 2-minute mark. I want to take a quick look back at, and I may not be able to capture it, but let's see.
Front, photographing Russian troops, and was then transferred to Belgium. Now, airplanes were still a new thing, and they evolved rapidly during the war. By late 1915, the days of unarmed reconnaissance planes were over, and the...
Okay. Now, maybe I'm just not that intelligent, but when I'm sitting here seeing, and y'all can't see my mouse, but I'm looking at where the gun is located and then how big the propeller is, how are you not guaranteed to shoot your propeller? I could be completely stupid and just not realize what, I mean, but it just seems like there's such a high chance, you know, unless it was raised up more, unless, so if y'all know, let me know. Let's go back.
The first airman to be awarded the Pour le Mérite, Germany's highest military honor. They were huge stars. The public loved them, and the enemy feared them. And of course, their image had a strong impact on young men like von Richthofen, who wanted to be just like them. This was the period of the Fokker scourge, since thanks to Anthony Fokker's synchronization gear, German pilots were able to fire through their propellers and aim the gun by aiming the plane. And this changed how aerial warfare was conducted.
Answered my question.
Fighting in the sky reached a new level of intensity. By mid-1916, the Allies had caught up in the aerial arms race, and over the skies of Verdun and the Somme, vicious dogfights took place. Oswald Belke and German Chief of Field Aviation Major Hermann von der Lieth Thomsen had a new idea to maximize the effectiveness of the German Air Force, the Jagdstaffel, called JASTA for short. This combined several planes into a unit that fought together and attacked the enemy in concert. Belke would personally lead and train JASTA 2, and he handpicked his pupils. One of them was Manfred von Richthofen, though it is unclear what Belke saw in von Richthofen, who had an unremarkable flying career so far and who had actually crashed the first time he had flown in a fighter plane. JASTA 2, or JASTA Belke as it became known, fought in northern France near the Somme. The pilots could usually choose their own planes, at the time either Fokker D3 or Albatros D1 or the new D2. On September 17th, the JASTA was operational and Richthofen got his first official aerial victory. Belke had 8 principles to guide his pilots. Dicta Belke, which you can read in the description. And he had a huge impact on German air strategy. But he met his fate October 28th. Nearly a month after that, Richthofen's legend began, when he shot down British ace Major Leno Hawker. Richthofen had embraced Belke's teachings and raked in victory after victory. Diving, whirling, accelerating, it all came naturally to him. On January 12, 1917, following his 17th victory, von Richthofen was awarded the Pour le Mérite and given command of his own JASTA, JASTA 11. He brought in Dicta Belke and would lead the JASTA through personal example. Nowadays, Richthofen is often portrayed as the single hunter of the skies who flew mostly on his own in his bright red Fokker triplane. But in reality, his true merit was as commander of his JASTA. He was as skillful an organizer, teacher, and leader as he was a killer in the skies.
That's fascinating because he's 100% right. When you think of the Red Baron, right, you think of that solo pilot. And not much was ever said about the leadership. And clearly, you know, being given his own command and pilots to command, you know, and still, I'm not thinking that he's, you know, very old at this point, you know, just speaks to him as as Indy said, a leader and a teacher. And teaching by example, right? Because I mean, that's still a lost art these days. But that's interesting because you never hear about that aspect of it. It's always kind of the lone wolf type of flyer, when in turn, he wasn't.
Under his command, new aces emerged like Kurt Wolff, Werner Voss, and Manfred's own younger brother, Lothar von Richthofen. As spring arrived, they were equipped with a new Albatros D3, and what was known as Bloody April began. Over the skies of Arras, the JASTA went to work like predators stalking prey, fighting aggressively and systematically. It was truly a bloody April, as JASTA 11 alone scored 89 confirmed victories. Richthofen shot down 21 planes that month and had by now surpassed Belke. The German press was ecstatic, and von Richthofen's fame rose to unprecedented levels. The newly promoted Rittmeister got worldwide attention. He was the Red Baron, the Petit Rouge, the Roter Kampfflieger, because of the bright red of his planes. In the skies, there is no need for camouflage, and in battle, it paid to be recognized. Richthofen himself said, "I make sure that my squadron sees me wherever I am." Like their commander, the men of Jasta 11 painted their planes in bright colors and distinct patterns. They were all differently colored. One was yellow with a black tail, another green and dark brown. One had blue stripes, another a checkered pattern on the tail. Standing in a row, they looked like brightly colored birds or butterflies. To friend and foe alike, the Jasta became known as Richthofen's traveling circus, as it was always sent to where the fighting was heaviest. They wanted to be seen by their enemies as well as by their comrades and the men on the ground. For the enemy, it should strike fear in their hearts. The famous red plane emerging from the clouds was terrifying for a new Allied pilot.
Oh, I bet.
Friendly fire also happened a lot, especially in the bigger engagements. And the bright colors distinguished the Jasta from their enemies. Also, the men on the ground who watched cheering from their trenches could make out who made a kill. See, a victory in the sky had always to be confirmed in the German aviation service. If no one saw you do it, then it didn't count towards the tally. And since there was natural competition between the young men, this was pretty important. Richthofen was a caring mentor to his pups. And as the pilots returned after each mission, he would meet them with both praise and lessons on how they could hone their craft even further. He was beloved by many, but highly respected by all. However, the pilots under Richthofen's command were not invincible. The Allies had experienced veterans and aces of their own, and many German aces fell prey to Allied machines. As Bloody April passed, the balance shifted once more towards the Allies, with their fighters like the SE-5 and the Bristol F-2B. To counter this and increase the effectiveness of the Jagdstaffel, they were combined to the even bigger Jagdgeschwader, hunting squadrons. The first squadron, consisting of Jasta 3, 4, 11, and 33, was placed under the command of the Red Baron. This was 50 to 60 planes that could quickly be transferred around the front. In Flanders, during the build-up for the Battle of Passchendaele in the summer of 1917, British artillery was giving the German infantry hell. It was directed by reconnaissance planes, accompanied by bombers and fighters who were strafing the Germans on every run. Jagdgeschwader 1 was sent for to try to gain local air superiority.
So that's another fascinating point, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, you're talking about 50, 60 planes, right? And being sent where the fighting was heaviest. The coordination, the getting there, the travel between the two, and I mean, all of that coordination, being that flexible, getting that many planes to a location to be ready to go, and then diving into battle, you know, again, it's nothing that we really think about on a daily basis, but when you stop to think about all of the coordination taking effect, you know, from top-down leadership, you know, regardless of the side of the battle, that, you know, the reason for the war, that's a different debate. But when you're talking about war strategies and having those commanders and having someone like the Red Baron as the leader of this larger group that is teaching these skills and passing on as much knowledge as he can, you know, and then to be able to coordinate that across, I can only imagine if you're depending on your confidence level as a pilot, right, as an ally, to see these brightly colored planes, what is your first thought? Is it, oh crap? Or is it, I'm going to take one of you down? Regardless of what happens to me, one of y'all is going down. That to me is the psychology of war that is both fascinating and terrifying, in the same sense of just those decisions that had to be made and those reactions of knowing you're staring what could be death in the face. That's always been fascinating.
On July 6th, Von Richthofen led the mission, and they encountered an enemy bomber squadron. As the Red Baron positioned himself behind a British bomber, something hit his plane, ricocheted off the frame, and hit the Baron in the back of his head. Nearly unconscious and with blood pouring from the wound, he broke off the attack, but the hit temporarily blinded him. But he didn't panic and calmly turned off his engine. There was nothing he could do until the shock wore off and his sight returned. His plane had lost altitude by then, but 2 other pilots had guarded their commander from the enemy. Richthofen turned back on his engine and made his way back to the airfield. Who or what hit the Baron that day remains a mystery. Richthofen did not return to his men until mid-August. His head still bandaged, but from hospital, he had contacted high command about new planes. The British, with their new Sopwiths, had the upper hand, while the German manufacturers hadn't produced something new in months. On his return to the squadron, Anthony Fokker himself was there to greet the Red Baron with the new Fokker triplanes, the Fokker V4 prototypes. Fokker, of course, used the meeting as a PR coup, filming the Red Baron in the new triplane, which is another reason why the triplane became so associated with the Red Baron. But Richthofen only scored a fraction of his total kills in the triplane. The plane's reception was mixed, however. It was way more maneuverable than the biplanes, sure, but not much of an improvement in terms of speed. Von Richthofen wasn't too happy about the prototype, especially now that the enemy's advantage in numbers was growing more than ever. As 1918 began, German high command wanted to see their star safe and sound, but the Red Baron could not be contained, and the German spring offensives needed their best pilots to succeed. In April 1918, Baron von Richthofen pushed his machine to the limits, scoring 12 victories in just 2 weeks. It was bloody April all over again. But the fighting and the head wound took their toll. Richthofen became exhausted and isolated himself more and more from his peers and his men. On the 21st, 1 day after he scored his 80th victory, von Richthofen flew out once again. At 10:30, his men...
So, and I'll rewind it a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, that's why that number that was in that board game just really caught me off guard as to saying 4,000, because that didn't seem realistic. I mean, they're talking about, 80 something, which seems more realistic, right? I mean, yeah, that just didn't seem right to me. Also, I understand 100% about the exhaustion. Because quite honestly, an ex-girlfriend of mine had a brain tumor, and so she had, surgery. And so obviously, they had cut into her skull, etc. And I would imagine they've done the same with him with his head wound. And after that, she dealt with the same thing, the exhaustion and getting worn out. The pressure changes, right, of any weather changes, so I can only imagine as him going up into the skies and that pressure and how that affected his head. So that's just an interesting thing, for people that may not understand that part, is I know from when, and she never flew, obviously, but just from that of removing that tumor, she really struggled after that. Now she's fine now, but she really struggled after that because of the weather changes. Anytime there was a shift in the barometric pressure, she got really bad headaches. And that's after medicine now, right? Think about medicine then. So I can only imagine what that wound did as far as the change in the barometric pressure as, flying over and over. And then obviously the wear and tear of just the flying and the war and all of that and the maneuvering. And so that actually makes 100% sense as to why that change in his mood occurred. So, maybe now I'm providing some knowledge that y'all may not have had, but that's just a firsthand experience of seeing someone with a skull, not really injury, but a change in the skull and what that can produce. And yeah, she really struggled with it, but for him to then go flying and that change of pressure, Yeah, I can only imagine. I'll rewind it a little bit just because I interrupted Indy, which I hate doing, but it's a reaction.
Von Richthofen flew out once again. At 10:30, his men engaged the Australian Flying Corps over Capi. Richthofen was seen chasing a Camel Scout. Uncharacteristically against his own teachings, von Richthofen pursued the fleeing scout along the Somme Valley, deep into enemy territory. Canadian ace Captain Arthur Roy Brown spotted Richthofen and dove behind him, firing a burst at the Baron's tail. Richthofen went down in a beet field, and the red triplane came to a stop. The Red Baron, though, was dead, killed by a single bullet through the heart. Captain Brown is officially credited for bringing down Richthofen's plane, but it is more likely that the Baron was hit by fire from the ground as he was flying fairly low. But still to this day, there is a lot of controversy about the exact circumstances of his death. The news reached the Jasta after they had already begun searching for him, and German High Command even sent out an official request to Allied High Command inquiring about the fate of the Red Baron. Manfred von Richthofen was buried by the Allies with full military honors, accompanied by an honor guard of officers from the Australian Flying Corps. His aircraft was taken apart for souvenirs, and even small pieces of the bright red canvas were valuable items. Some are still on display in museums in Britain, Australia, and Canada. But despite the death of a hero, the legend of the Red Baron was and is still very much alive, and to this day, immortalized in songs like that by Sabaton.
So I'm going to stop there because that's something that's interesting to me is here's a guy that took out a number of your planes, right? And a number of your soldiers. But he was so well respected that he was buried with full military honors by the Allies. That's fascinating to me. And I use the word fascinating a lot, but it truly is. Because you think about that time and just war, right? But again, respect and all of that to be done. That's interesting. You know, now, the souvenirs of the plane and all that, you know, you could say, okay, that's disrespectful, but there's the war side of it, right? Here is this pilot that was taken down, that had taken out a number of your troops that you so respected as a pilot and as a soldier, you know. So yes, that makes perfect sense that they would, you know, kind of scavenge the plane. It's good to see some of it ended up in a museum. But yeah. All right, here comes the cool part. Let's get to the song.
Okay, like I said, you guys do have a song about the Red Baron. It's on your new album, The Great War.
Yes.
Well, tell us a bit about it.
Well, it's a bit of a different animal, actually. This one is a very fast shuffle track, and it reminds me somehow about punk rock.
Do the beat a bit. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, and why the Red Baron? What about the Red Baron was it that interests you?
Oh, well, he's a legend. Yeah. And the funny thing is, everybody's heard about the Red Baron.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But nobody knows any details. It's like the legend has taken some life of its own.
Yep.
So why do you think his myth, his legend has endured when people don't remember the Kaiser and things like that? Why him?
Yeah, I have no idea, actually. I tried to figure that out when we were researching the album.
Yeah?
And I couldn't come to a, you know, sensible answer.
I really thought when I was a kid, and really thought up until I was working with the Great War, right? That you believe that myth, that these things, that these are knights of the skies, that it was somehow honorable fighting and stuff. But
there's a key takeaway from that. And it's one of those obvious ones, but at the same time, I don't know that you truly stop to think about it. I know I don't necessarily think about it a lot when listening to or watching their videos. But the key word he just said, and this is what separates them. Researching for the album, right? Granted, and you would say, oh, okay, well, that's obvious because they're writing about history. But now think about that research, right? You know, and we talk about, like in the last one that came out, what is today, with No Bullets Fly, right? And them and Power coming across the book and reading and thinking that it was fascinating with this story and the beautiful story, but then diving into it, right? And thinking about doing that for, you know, I don't know how many songs are on that album, but, you know, generally I would think, you know, probably 12 or so. And the amount of research that they're having to do and then write the song, or him and Par writing the lyrics and putting the music to it. And that just leads another credence to their brilliance, because you know, when you're writing a song, it's coming from your imagination, right? And how things should be. And you're telling a story from your imagination and putting it to paper and then putting music to those words. But for them, it was more than that, because it's truly telling history. And it's just one of those things that, you know, you almost take for granted, because you're like, well, the history's out there. But just think about having to sit down and do that on top of everything else that they do, touring and performing and things like that. And it's another appreciation for the work that they do that I think just needs to be pointed out. Y'all probably already do this, but for me, as someone that's still fairly new to them, it's a huge hats off to them.
But even Red Baron himself would say, the best kill is when they don't see you coming.
Yeah.
That's not really honorable to walk up beside someone and shoot him in the head with a machine gun. When you said, like, you've got the sort of the punky shuffle beat, why would you pick that kind of beat to go with the Red Baron?
Because it matches the plane.
I wish I could tell you all a really cool story now, but the truth is we wrote the song way before we knew about which song was going to be picked for that topic. I knew it was going to be about the Great War.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do something new. I wanted to do something different. And it's really straightforward, fast shuffle, Hammond organs, and, you know,
and you're going to get a little snippet of it right here.
I hope so.
A piece of it right here.
And he's flying, higher. The king of the sky, flying to pass, and he's flying to high.
The intro of the song is actually an organ piece by Johann Sebastian Bach.
And did you play it, or who played it?
Let's say I tried to play it. A computer helped me to correct my mistakes.
Oh, there you go.
You know, not too many people are good enough to play Johann Sebastian Bach's music on proper organ.
Yeah.
Man in the stream and up and there in between. The flying circus on the man from Russia. The sky in a plane, this man commands his domain. The western front and all the way to Russia.
All right, everyone, that's it for today. And if you're curious of our new album, The Great War, for the patrons, there's a special edition, all right? If you can't support us on Patreon, that's all right too. We love you anyway. But you can help us through subscribing, turning on notifications, commenting on these videos, start talking, have conversations there, for God's sake, and also spread it on other social media, all right?
See, and that's what y'all could do for me. It's the same thing. They're just a lot more popular. It's the same thing.
And if you want more of Sabaton's heavy metal music, we have plenty of it on the Sabaton
Yes, you
official
do.
channel. And if you want more history, there's the Time Ghost and the World War II channel. So there's plenty for you to check out and plenty more to come.
And if you want to see more Sabaton history stuff, you can click right there for more heavy metal.
Hold on, let me get to the end, because I always want the credits to be shown. Okay. You know, it's funny you said that, because it's true, right? I mean, you know, the Patreons are nice, and I may one day have one. I've thought about it. Time is an issue for me, quite honestly. But, you know, it is. You know, the subscribing and all of that is important to us, so please do. Now, for me, you know, I think when I first heard the song, and I may have said it in my reaction to Red Baron, is that for me, you know, Indy asked Joachim about the why that punk rock type of feel, and he said there was a story behind it, which, you know, I'm sure he's given in other places, but to me it fits, because if you think about an air battle, right, You're talking about something that is fast paced with split second decisions of bank left, bank right, dive up, not dive up, going up, diving down, you know, twisting and turning. And so that beat fits that perfectly because it fits air warfare. So that would be, I mean, that's why it would make sense to me. Now, again, there's probably a cool story behind it, as he said. But yeah, that it made perfect sense for that song. Let me switch it up. I'll give you my final thoughts. This is why I appreciate something like the history, because, you know, to see the details gives a great respect. Now, they did a great job with, you know, the video itself and explaining, you know, just how great he was. But this really shows, again, the little parts about him being a teacher and having that, you know, teacher himself that he learned from and mastered his craft, that he could pass that on. And I think, you know, there are very few people in this world, and they do turn out to be great leaders, and people learn from them, and learn by example, right? Which I think is something that is, I don't want to say totally lost, but lost in the mainstream today of great leaders. You know, in this world of power and power being key, it seems that is lost in how leadership truly, what to be a leader is truly lost. And I think that watching this and watching someone like the Red Baron and knowing how, you know, he carried on what was taught to him to that next generation, and having people like Voss and somebody else, I forget the last name, and even his little brother become pilots and become great fighters, is just another, you know, notch in the belt in the history of what is the Red Baron. And, you know, yes, you could say, okay, was he shot down by, you know, flying that low? Was he shot down by guns on the ground, or, you know, by the pilot behind him? Forensics today could probably tell you if someone wanted to know. But, you know, it's one of those, it's a legend, right? It goes with any legend that you're talking about, and how they died, and, you know, who was truly credited. Was it, you know, this or that or this? You know, that's all part of the legend. This legend, you know, regardless of enemy or ally, the guy was a hell of a pilot, a hell of a fighter, and you can't really do anything but respect him as a human that was given a challenge. He answered the challenge. He put forth his best effort to become the best that he could be, regardless of the side he was on. And for me, that's just something that has to be respected. So, with that being said, let me give, just like Joachim did, let me give my shameless plug. If you like the video, hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. And if you like the content I'm putting out with these Sabaton histories, hit that subscribe button. Just lets me know that it's worth my time. You know, I say it in some videos, some not, but, you know, what I do on this channel is on top of already working a full-time job, having 3 kids and a wife. And so I do put a lot of my free time into this channel. It's a sacrifice that I've decided to make in the family. You know, they understand and they support me with it because of what it holds for the future. But that is really a partnership with y'all in supporting me. And you can do that just free by hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. And in a world of thousands and millions of channels, so many of you have already hit that button, and I can tell you, I honestly appreciate it greatly. And I love the comments. I try to respond to as many as I can, with at least a like, and a thumbs up, just to let you know that I saw it and I appreciate it. And then of course, if you've got a request, I capture that in my request list. So don't think that those don't go unnoticed. I do see the comments just throughout the day. It is sometimes hard to respond to each and every one of those, but I do see them. So I thank you for that. with that being said, that's going to close out this episode of the Sabaton history with the Red Baron. The next week, I've got Night Witches and Christmas Truce. And then we've got Unkillable Soldier and Attack of the Dead Men. Now, I may go in, depending on my time, record those back to back and may post 2 a day to try to catch up to where, again, as I said, doing the reaction to the song and then the next day doing the history. I'm going to try to get there. Can't promise it, but that's a goal. Anyway, with that being said, my friends, always remember, if someone asks you to stop what you're doing, don't ask for 1, don't ask for 2, and certainly don't ask for 10. Don't ask for 5. I knew it as soon as I said it. Someone asks you to stop what you're doing, always ask for just 10 more minutes. I'm JTMM. Apparently I need sleep, but I'm out.